I just say fuck my life way too much. Your other catchphrases, I'm sorry, but you're not sorry at all. I'm not sorry, no, I'm not sorry. It sounds polite.
Hello and welcome to a new episode and a new season of the Daily Dog Walk. And I think I've got some new listeners and some new followers. So I want to say thank you so much for your support. This has been a journey. It has been such a journey. If you do not know about the journey, let me give you I'm going to give you a very brief overview. So I started the podcast last year purely to go into the woods so that I could share my truth about how I had been affected by my child abuse growing up, and all that childhood trauma. You see it online. Everybody's going through something, and this was my 2 pence. Okay, and I thought if I could help people, if other people could hear my story. Well, little did I know that it was a lot to process. It was a lot, and it was things were unresolved, and so much happened. So much happened. So much happened. So, I just, yeah, my life played out in real time. If you haven't listened to the first 10 episodes, I just go back and have a listen. Okay, then you'll understand. I don't have to repeat myself, but my life changed for the better. I would say I got reconnected with the family that I had been I would say estranged from for 30 years. That happened. I started the podcast lonely, complaining that I was alone and nobody loved me, and that's how I felt. And then by the end of it, I had full validation and my family were back in my life. I just could not have made that up. I couldn't. Okay, but the truth of the matter is I've been living my life in full survival mode, all 46 years of them. And that's what came out of the podcast. And I didn't know half the truths that came out, that raw, that honesty. I didn't know where it was going to lead me. Okay, I didn't. Now, have you ever looked at your life and realized that you were in survival mode? Like, literally, that's what happened to me. And it was hard to process that actually, I I had to admit to myself how broken I actually really was. And it was the best thing. My honesty was the best thing that ever happened to me. So let's dive into this episode where I'll get you up to date. And this is the new format. This is how I'll be doing. I'm not walking. I'm not walking anymore. I don't need to go into the woods and bare my soul. The dogs are still here. Their dogs are still here. And we will go out sometimes. But for now, let's crack on. Okay, I want to explain about what I have a polarizing opinion about survival mode. I've talked about it on my TikTok lives. I talk about it on my socials, but I don't necessarily believe that living in survival mode is necessarily a bad thing. I don't. Bear with me and hear me out. Okay, look, I've lived all my life in survival mode and I've created some amazing things. I've been held back a lot as well, and I probably haven't achieved some of the things that I could have potentially achieved. We'll never know. And I'm not dwelling on that. I don't dwell on that. But living in survival mode has looked like, I know that I put myself in positions of people pleasing far too much, just to keep the peace. Not just to keep the peace, to feel comfortable, to feel belonged, to feel wanted, because I had fear of abandonment hugely, which I've talked about already. And this is normal. It's a normal reaction to living in survival mode. People think it's just having anxiety, but it's being able to not trust yourself in the situations where you need to trust yourself the most. And the more it happens, the more you start to lose yourself in these traits, the more it becomes a problem for you in the long term. And most people are, I'm not unique. Most people are like me. It's not too late. I'm not going to say it's too late, because it was not too late for me. But they live that way for so long that they don't recognize they're in survival mode, and they think it's part of their normal personality. It's not. Trust me, it's not. So the podcast, and I've been saying this for to all my new followers and everybody on my socials, was the catalyst for me, okay, to be here and and to be doing what I'm doing now on social media, okay, and starting my new business. And let me tell you, let me fill you in. So, as you know, I went into the woods to share my story, and through that time when I was sharing my story, my grandmother died, and I got reconnected with my family. So it was a huge family reunion, and that was a lot to process. Doing the podcast, it was harder than I initially thought. I thought, oh, I'm just going out into the woods, and but it was a lot harder for me to process, and it took it took some emotional time because I had to go back to being that version of myself. Fast forward to the new year. Fast forward to the new year, and unfortunately, I got made redundant and I lost my job. Now, old me, old me would have been devastated. I'm always been a workaholic, and I really love my job. And although I've had some challenges within my company, and within my department, it's something I'm very passionate about. And I really, I'm really proud of all the work we've put into that place. So, it doesn't. I was not happy that I was put in a position just after Christmas that I was going to lose my job. Nobody would. There's no good time to be made redundant and to lose your job. So, anyways, I found out that I was going to be going into consultation, and the fear was real. That I would lose my job, and that's what happened. So by the end of January, I found out that I was leaving, and that's it. I was like, what do I do? For me, it was a couple of days though, and this is I've always been honest ever since I started Daily Dog Walk on the podcast. I've always been honest about my mental health. Okay, and I think this is what I'm trying to inspire other people to be honest, because it's when you hold on to those things is when it becomes the real problems. And I've retrained myself. So, you heard about my story, you heard about how I've been affected, you heard about how, I've had breakdowns, and yeah, how it is seeped into every, piece of my life. You've heard about that. Okay. I've told you about my deep sadness and how that has affected me and the relationships that I've had around me. Now I'm going to tell you how I recovered from that, so that I can be confident enough to be here now, because I've had terrible self-esteem issues, terrible self-worth issues. I didn't trust myself, and self-sabotage. Wow. I could be the queen of self-sabotage. Okay. So, all of these things have been ingrained into me, and they became part of who I was and my personality, to the point I stopped putting myself out and putting myself forward for things. And I stopped believing that I could do these things, because, I told myself I wasn't good enough. I wasn't worth it. Okay. So doing that podcast kind of swept all of that away. It swept it all away. And I never did podcast intending for that to happen. I actually didn't know that that was possible. I actually didn't even know that most of those things that were happening, that I were doing and projecting, were trauma traits, until I started talking about them out loud. And then I realized how affected I had been. So basically, I gave myself my own therapy. That's basically what I did. But but that's the thing. When that happened in the new year, when I found out I'd lost my job, that's when I realised all the work that I had done over the last couple of months had paid off. It had paid off 100%. So I didn't have that feeling of hopelessness. I didn't have that anxiety, or that desire to hide myself away. I had the weekend to process everything that was happening, but I didn't stop talking to friends. I didn't hide myself away. I didn't come off social media. I actually went on social media and spoke to people, So that's what it did for me. It helped me to recognize, that what I'd, been hiding behind for all that time, okay, wasn't really my true personality, and I could actually break free from it. Now, it was really special. So this has been a really special journey for me. And now I'm in an opportunity. I'm like, I've got an amazing opportunity to help others on similar journeys, okay? And that's what I've decided to dedicate myself to, which is really scary. The fear is still there. I don't let the fear control me now, okay? I trust myself. I trust myself for the first time ever. And you know what? Most of the common signs of, you know, I've lived with most of the common signs of survival mode for such a long time. One of the biggest things was being invisible. And then I would, reinforce those things by, ignoring people, myself, not going on social media. And then when I did post, nobody would like comment, and I'd wonder why. We do these things to ourselves most of the time, and that's what I've come to realize, that I was the problem. And that lack of self-worth, that lack of confidence in certain areas in my life, that fed into that self-worth. I mean, survival mode can be a good thing, but when it does that, when it does that, it's trying to protect you, and at the same time it's causing you harm. I think the best thing really for me was recognizing recognizing my trauma traits, okay, so that I could then put things in place. So this is the exciting thing. Because now that I'm here, full time as a podcaster, I'm a podcaster now, which is incredibly not what I expected to be at 46 years old, and obviously even 6 months ago. So I hope I can stay in this space, but it all does depend on how well I do. So I'm throwing everything at the moment. I'm throwing everything at all myself, all my time. I'm throwing everything at the podcast, and not only that, I'm building things. Now, one of the things about me, once you'll get to know me, if you don't already, is I've worked in training and development for 25 years, okay, and I've also worked in further education for the last 15 years, on top of also being a professional photographer as well, okay. I've been a wedding photographer, I've been a freelance photographer, and I've also been a newborn photographer and a boudoir photographer with my own business, with my own studio. So I've ran businesses, but my main job role is training and developing people, and in education, and I really thrive on that, building curriculums, and bettering people. So I want to develop a mentor business, which is something that I've been working on at the moment. But most importantly, I want to support and help other people that feel stuck, okay, that also don't know, aren't able to shake free from survival mode, okay, who know they have potential but just can't get there, okay. And over the last month, while I've been on social media, the one common theme is confidence. It is confidence. But I think, and this is my true belief, that confidence, we build each other up, okay. Confidence comes from so many different areas in people's life. It really does. It's not just something you get overnight, okay. And as a mentor, I understand that. I understand the road to finding yourself again, and personal growth and development. So I've been working on something really special over here in the background, and mainly because that's what I've been doing over the last couple of months, is I've been recognizing patterns and trying to understand those behavioral patterns, not just in myself but in others, and the common themes that we have. And because of that, I've created the Power Framework. Now, I am not somebody, yes, I talk about trauma and I talk about healing and things, but I am not somebody who sits here and whines and moans about it like a bitch. Okay, yeah, I did go to the woods and for 3 months last year, and create 10 episodes of the podcast where I cried and wanted some sympathy, but that was a one-off. It's not going to happen again. It's not going to happen again. And at the end of the day, okay, I am a practical person. Trust me, okay. You tell me, to ask my advice on something, and by the end of the time you've told me, I've already got this is what you need to do. I'm a doer, okay. I can't sit on things. I'm a practical person, okay. So yeah, I've always been like that. So I don't like to sit in feel sorry for me. I like to go, what are we going to do about this? Come on. Yeah, what are we doing about this? What's happening? Come on. Okay. So that's what I've done. Everything that I've done and everything I've worked on over the last 4 to 5 years, because look, one thing you need to understand is if you've got a confidence issue and you need to work on yourself and you want to achieve, it's not an overnight thing. It never is an overnight thing. And the biggest thing I wanted to put together was a community of like-minded people, not just people who have narcissistic parents. Trust me, okay? We have all got different reasons to have trauma, and it's not necessarily our parents. So, you know, it can come at us from all, it can come from the workplace, it can come from, you know, from the schools, it can come, you know, it can, from dealing with things, you know, it can come from all kinds of avenues of life. Okay, the supermarket every Friday seriously gives me trauma. I just can't, I can't be spending £4.50 on ketchup. I'm just sorry. I know I'm light-hearted, I'm being light-hearted now, but that's the only thing. This is where I've got to in my life, okay, where I can, that's the one thing that winds me up now. 6 months ago it was not that, trust me, okay, but that's my headspace now. Look, I've got the headspace now to worry about ketchup. Yeah. And I want that for you. I want that for you if you need it. If you need it. So I created the power framework, and that's what I've been working on. I'm really, really passionate about it. And basically, power is an acronym, okay, but it's a framework to help people recognize, you know, and understand what those important elements are that they need to be focusing in on their life, okay, to get the desired outcome that they want. But I don't think, and this is something I've always said, that blueprints and, you know, check boxes and guides and things, you know, they work for some, but that's not what I am. I am a hands-on mentor. That's what I am, and that's why I've come into this space. Okay, so I'm building a community. I'm on TikTok every day, Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. I'm talking to people. I share my mental health. I'm not shy about it. I'm not ashamed of it either. The people who treated me badly should be ashamed of themselves. I'm bossing this now. You know, I'm bossing this. So I'm not ashamed at all to talk about how I feel and how I react to those feelings. Okay, I recognize those, and I want others to have a healthy relationship with their feelings. I am an empath. I feel very, very deeply. I can't help it. It's a curse and it's a gift and a curse all wrapped up in one. And you know, so and what I really want is to build a community space of like-minded people, who have had their hand dealt, you know, and I've been there. They understand, you know, so people don't feel alone, because it's a lonely road. And that's what I'm doing now. So I'm meeting people, I'm busy setting things up, and it's really exciting. And one of the common themes that came out of doing these lives is that people are struggling with confidence. And it's, you know, it's a symptom, okay, but it's not the why. We don't understand the why and, you know, the what. So, you know, that's what I'm doing. I'm building, you know, systems and things that we can help support them, and frameworks that, you know, and communities and things. I'm so excited, and I really want to be able to keep doing this. So this week I've created the confidence reset bundle. It's available now as well, and again, like I say, it's, you know, it's the tools are important, but more importantly is the community, and that's what I'm really excited to be building. So look, every week I will come on, so I'll be doing weekly episodes of the Daily Dog Walk, and I'll be talking to I'll have guests on. I hope to have guests on. I've put my feelers out, and I'd really like to get more voices, especially of some some mental health professionals. That's really what I would like to get on. So I've put my feelers out. I'm speaking to other people. I'm networking at the moment, so that we can get people involved. Come on to the podcast and give your point of view, because we'll be looking at different themes every week that relate to survival mode. Okay, and that relate to not necessarily complex PTSD. I've spoke heavily about that on my socials. I have suffered with complex PTSD all my life, and I spent the first 10 episodes explaining how that's affected me and those trauma traits. So I'm not a therapist. I'm somebody who's had lived experiences, and, you know, who wants to see people, you know, build their confidence up so they can achieve the things that they want to achieve, whether that is a business or, you know, and yes, I am a business mentor, so that's something I hope to be able to support people with as well. So this is exciting. If you want to start working on recognizing your patterns, understanding your behaviors and your triggers, the confidence reset bundle is perfect. Okay, and it's available if you want it. But look, I'm all about the conversations. Let's have conversations. Come into the lives. Okay, this is a community space. That's what I want it to be, a community space, because I want to know, where is survival mode showing up in your life? Where do you notice it the most? For me, it has been in my corporate job. It was in my corporate job. I've realised that since I've stepped away from it, the anxiety, and it wasn't the anxiety of doing my job. It wasn't that. It was the being misunderstood from the people and not being supported by the wider company. That was my thing, and I always felt that pressure of being misunderstood or not being, not having the allies, to work with. That was my thing. I was always in survival mode while I was within that company. So leaving was not necessarily a bad thing. It means now I'm comfortable being myself within my own skin. I mean, look, I'm going to ask you guys: do you feel stuck? Do you feel stuck? Do you know that you think you're capable of more? Yeah, it is common. And what about people pleasing? Now, most of us who are perimenopausal, if you're perimenopausal, would have got that's gone, eradicated. But we've got a younger generation, and I think they need to be aware of this. They need to be aware of these traits within themselves so that they can manage themselves better and they don't get themselves put in vulnerable situations. Okay, so look, I'm not going to warble on at you anymore. I've given you an update. I've told you what I'm doing and where I've been and what's going on with me and what I'm going to be doing moving forward, which is really exciting if I get to stay here. Look, I only get to stay here doing this if we get subscribers. So if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, why not subscribe? Look, it doesn't cost you anything, just subscribe. And share it out, share it as well. So I have got a multitude of guests who want to come on the Daily Dog Walk, okay, to share their stories about domestic abuse, child abuse, their childhood trauma. We've also the gaslighting of the NHS, that's been coming up with people. We've also got people who want to talk about the education system, which is something that's very close to my heart, and I want to talk to them too. So there are so many themes because this affects people's mental health, okay? And that's what we're here for. We're here to shine a light, okay, on all those themes, okay, and open up those conversations so people can feel they can get things off their chest, okay? And if people want to share their stories with me, I'm open for collabs, okay? So please come on. Come on. Just message me, okay? And we can have a chat. Now, next week, I will be talking every week. We'll be talking about different themes that relate to mental health, but mainly looking at living in survival mode. My favorite subject next week is going to be people pleasing. Oh, gotta love a bit of people pleasing. Oh, gotta love that. So look, I'd love you to keep joining in, subscribe to us, and so that you can keep up to date on our episodes. Okay, join our community as well. If any of this resonates with you, then comment, share. The more interaction we get, the more I'll be able to be here next week and the week after and the week after and the week after that. Okay, and I won't have to go back to my 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 corporate job. See, the Daily Dog Walk used to be me going off into the woods, telling my story. Now it's about understanding ourselves and rebuilding our lives. Okay, so look, I'll see you next week, okay, on the Daily Dog Walk. Bye.
I just say fuck my life way too much. Your other catchphrases, I'm sorry, but you're not sorry at all. Sorry, no, I'm not sorry. That was polite.